Hello, my name is Harry Huang. I'm in my mid 50s. I work for an energy company in London. So I, together with my wife, invested in Oakwood project. The investment was towards the end of 2018. We were doing some research about retirement investment, and we came across this concept of PBSA, purpose-built student accommodations. We were quite attracted to the concept. We made contact with a few agents. One of them, Sterling Woodrow, contacted us in early January 2019 and proposed us this Oakwood project. Attractive proposition on the surface at the time. Uh, you know, it was presented as a completed project. In earning rental income on day one with a 5-year guaranteed 8% return, which we thought suits our requirement quite well. It's a steady, guaranteed, steady long-term income in a sector which seemed to be quite promising. Guaranteed students' requirements, demand. You can project that into future years for a long time to come. So we were quite attracted by the proposition, but we did have questions actually. I did ask the agent about this guarantee. I said, how is that guarantee going to work? He actually sent me an email, black and white on paper, said, oh, little site escrow account. The money is there, even if the accommodation is not rented out, it's occupied, the money is there to pay the guaranteed rent. Now that was quite convincing as well. Plus, he also made some very misleading, with hindsight, very misleading and factually incorrect statements. For example, the project is backed by a successful and proven developer. It's managed by a long-standing and successful management company. Obviously, with hindsight, none of this can be substantiated. At the time, this was enough to convince us, to persuade us to go ahead. The second mistake we made was perhaps to go ahead with the conveyancing solicitor recommended. Now the argument was this solicitor has already dealt with many other clients in this project, therefore they are familiar with all the details of this project. Therefore, it should be easier and more straightforward, and also potentially cost less money to go with them. Again, I was persuaded by this argument. I thought, if it's right with all the many other investors, surely it's right for me as well. So we went on with this solicitor, Ackland & Co. They did very little, basically. They just simply copy and paste what they did for the other investors. Some of them must be quite early, must have bought into the project at a very early stage. We were still off plan. Whereas in our case, the purchase was presented as a completed building. But then when I look into the title report produced by the solicitor, it's everywhere. It was referring to an off plan, referring to stage payments. Even the conclusion said, which was quite shocking, said you are purchasing an off-plan property. That was in the conclusion. So clearly, the solicitor hadn't done his job at all, didn't look after my interests at all. All he did was copy and paste whatever he did for previous investors, and pocketed the fees I paid him. But that's not the worst part of it. The worst part of it was the project wasn't completed. It did not have a practical completion certificate. there may be a certificate from the Sheffield City Council, but obviously it did not have a practical completion certificate, which has to be agreed between the developer and the management company. He wasn't there. Now, the Windows solicitor and my solicitor, my conveyancing solicitor, they should have made sure without this certificate being in place, my funds should never have been released to the vendor, to the seller. Now, this was a big failure on their part, the solicitor, because they should have checked the certificate is in place. My solicitor should have checked as well. And now both of them failed, but that was the case. And both of them authorized the transfer of the fund to the seller. My purchase, the legal completion was completed end of March 2019, 10 months now from today. And as of today, I still have not got a title document. It still hasn't been registered with the land registry. Obviously, I haven't received the guaranteed rental, like I assume, like many other investors, fellow investors in the project. Because all this was held up by a dispute between the developer and the management company on the lack of practical completion. Now, this is fundamentally wrong. As investors, we are not part of that dispute. We shouldn't be a victim of that dispute. And some of the issues, for example, I only afterwards, there was some, shocking things which are really missing in this project. For example, health and safety files, drawings, manuals, operational manuals, maintenance manuals. When the surveyors asked to see these things from the developer, they can't find them. Either they are unwilling or they are unable to provide them. But without these things, obviously, this building, how are you going to maintain this building going forward? So that is just shocking for to someone who has an engineering background. When you do these sort of projects, you have to have all these things on record. It has to be auditable. Everything has to be properly kept, documented, because you have to make sure that when auditors comes to see this information, so you can present it. And things like, for example, fire risk assessment, fire strategy plans. These things have to be properly documented. You cannot say you don't have them. And also, documents like pipework pressure test certificates, you have to have that. Otherwise, how can you be certain when you live in the property that the pipes are not going to break? And also things like the electric test certificates, if you don't have that, I'm not going to live in a building which hasn't passed electric tests. And lightning protection risk assessment as well. Again, that's missing. I mean, nobody wants to be struck by lightning. You don't want to live in a building which hasn't got that assessment done properly. So there's so many things missing, so many things which hasn't been done right, and there are quite a few which are not really compliant with the planning conditions, etc. Again, none of this should be, the problem of us as investors. This should have been addressed between the developer and the management company a long time ago. Now, here we are, or where I am, 18 months after legal completion. And still, these issues are dragging on. I don't even have a from them to say when this issue are going to be resolved. So I haven't received any income, haven't seen any returns, and worse than that, I don't know when I'm going to get it. If only they can tell me, oh, it's going to be resolved within the next 3 months, 6 months. These are the steps we are taking, etc. No communication whatsoever. So I know there are some complaints have been made to the solicitors regulatory authority. Now, I'm not sure that's sufficient because they can only deal with the solicitors' responsibilities or failure. But as I said before, there are multiple parties involved in this project, and they all bear responsibilities. The agents, the solicitors, the developers, etc. So because of that, I have therefore decided I cannot wait forever. I cannot wait anymore. I have to take actions. I have therefore instructed Mr. Stephen Topping, Fielding Porter solicitor firm, to represent me, to look into the case, to see who are responsible, and then to make a claim against them on my behalf. Now, this is not something I wanted to do from the beginning, obviously, but I cannot see any other way out. Given how long we've been waiting, given that there is no plan in place as far as I can see to get the issue resolved, I think taking the legal action is the only alternative we have now. Now, I would strongly encourage other investors to consider whether they want to join me in making the claims in the legal actions. I think if we do, the more of us do that, the better chances we have. I do believe we have a strong case. I understand, obviously, each individual cases might slightly be. Some of you might bought into earlier than or rather than later, like in my case, suffered from not seeing the rental income from this project. If you have suffered from the failure of your solicitors, of your agents, if you have suffered because of the incompetence or of the developer, I would strongly encourage you to join me in taking this legal route to make a claim against these parties, to make sure that we get a return from our investment. If you want to get into touch with me, this is my email address. It's harry.y.huang@gmail.com. You can either contact me directly, or you can contact the solicitor, Mr. Stephen Topping, at Fielding's Porter. Either contact him to discuss whether you are interested in joining me in this legal action. So that's all I have to say. I hope that some of you at least will join me. I do have strong belief that we will succeed. Thank you.